she does the best interviews with Padres players, bar none. There was a Josh Hader one that came out, I think, last week. The Seth Lugo one has been my favorite. Disc golf and his hobbies and everything you find out about Padres players that you were always kind of curious about. Annie somehow gets them to reveal and spill a little bit more than I think anybody else does. And Annie Heilbrunn joins us right now on our Premier Chevrolet of Carlsbad Fan Hotline. Annie, good morning.
Good morning, Ben, Woods, Polly. It's great to be on with you guys.
Good to have you, my friend. How's everything?
Everything is rolling along. I feel like we've all aged a lot this season. Doesn't it seem like?
We absolutely have.
But it's good. How are you guys?
We're good.
We're doing great.
Let me ask you just, you don't have to spill all your secrets, but journalist to journalist, how do you get those guys to open up a little bit more? Because we all talk to athletes, and most of the time they're trying to say as little as possible when speaking to the media.
I think that they've kind of taken on like a life of their own where, guys have seen other guys do them and kind of learned things about other guys. And so they've kind of saw, okay, this is kind of how these go. And I let them know beforehand, there's usually very little baseball talk and things like that. But I've gotten good buy-in this year, really good, fun interviews. And I love doing those. It's just, I learn a lot. Like I go in with a certain set of questions and abandon them, halfway through because so-and-so has said something about this or that. So it's been good with those. I really enjoyed them. And appreciate the compliment. Thank you for that.
Talking to the great Annie Heilbrunn here on Ben and Woods this morning. And I know that attention makes you uncomfortable. I kind of feel the same way, Annie, but
you do, huh?
I do, actually.
Attention makes you uncomfortable.
It does make me uncomfortable.
I'm surprised by that.
It really does. I swear. That's why it's not Woods reads raps. It's Ben reads raps, my friend. But listen, everybody wants to know, kind of what's next for you and without having to say too much or wanting to say too much. I know you. I know how you feel. Is it nice to see the rabid support that people want for you to be back on the Padres broadcast?
Yes, and it really is. I typically don't take personal things public, if that makes sense,
sure,
unless it's something funny that you can, make fun of me on or endearing or things like that. And so that's why I don't respond to a lot of those things or whatnot. But I see them and it really means a lot to me. Like my heart kind of grows 10 sizes just to hear that people are thinking or, have thought or send messages privately or publicly. And that I guess that they just, they care, and so, I don't expect people to notice that stuff, and so I really do appreciate it. I see them all. I would say that there's a fantastic broadcast team that goes on air every night on radio, on TV, in front of the camera, behind the camera. They do a lot of hard work to get that broadcast on air, and they do a great job. And, they've been great to me throughout my career. And I just, at the same time want to say that, I really don't have any, answers to give, but I just want to say that I appreciate to everyone that's been reaching out. Just, I appreciate the sentiments and wanting a female and all that stuff. So it does mean a lot to me.
I don't want a female. I want Annie on my there's a difference there.
Thank
Annie.
you.
Woods though, like if he just suddenly disappeared from this show, he hopes everyone immediately forgets him and no one wants him back because he doesn't want the attention.
It's so true. I swear,
that would be so embarrassing to him.
Well, you won't see me in my basement doing a newsletter and a YouTube show every day. That I promise you. Once I'm gone, I'm gone. You're
not going to suck the last bit of spotlight out of your life?
No, I'm good. I've told all my stories.
All right, Annie.
We'll see about that.
I'm telling you. I promise you.
It's the team that no one can figure out.
Yes.
The last 2 days, they look like they could be World Series champs, taking on the team with the best record in the American League. Last week, you wonder how they ever win a game sometimes. It's almost impossible to figure out this team. Your just perspective on the inconsistency we've seen.
It's been such a roller coaster. It's honestly, the puzzling looks on people's faces from the staff to the coaches to the players, like, I really think that at the beginning of the season, there was a sentiment of, okay, we're just going to snap out of this. Like, there is a confidence that these guys have that, like, they've all been through slumps. And yeah, it was weird that they were going through a collective slump, but there was this feeling of, this is baseball. This is baseball. We're going to snap out of it. And then when that didn't happen, the tone changed. And then I think that there became, that period of pressing and a little bit of a lot of frustration. And it's one of those things where, when kind of everybody, guys, like everybody up and down the lineup, as is going through it, maybe except for Ha-Sung Kim, for the most part, consistently. There's not a lot of like, in a clubhouse, you tend to have guys that are having a tough time or frustration, but then you have guys that are doing well and having success, and it just kind of ebbs and flows, and those places switch off, throughout the course of a season. But when you're all going through it, there did become what I think, and I think players might disagree, but it seemed like a collective funk. It just seemed like they were trying not to buy into, oh, here we go again, but at the same time, just that's human nature. Sometimes you start to sort of buy into that, even if you're telling yourself you're not. But they were really fighting against that. At the same time, I think that it really is like a little bit of the roster just being new. You have a lot of new guys in there who are trying to figure out their place. There isn't what I think, it isn't like 2015 where there is, there's like chaos and, ego and blah, blah, blah. But there are guys that they all have a certain amount of ego, a healthy, sense of ego. And they all kind of have, their position kind of in a clubhouse. And I don't think when you get a lot of new guys in, especially, like, they are also trying to figure out like what the other guy's position is in the clubhouse and not to overstep. And then those guys are having bad years, and so there really wasn't a role there. The roles were very kind of mixed, and there was a sense of like trying to feel people out, I think. I don't think it's a whole thing where they don't like each other and all that stuff. I think that, it's, I always say a locker room or a clubhouse is a petri dish. It's, you have guys that probably wouldn't hang out outside of baseball, but that's very common. They're not all best friends, they don't all go out and things like that, but they do try to do the team dinners and some team activities. And you just have friendships form between some that are closer than others, which is just very natural. But last night, I think, and I'm sure you guys agree, like, you saw for the first time, like, they were having fun. Yes. And, it's a chicken or an egg thing, right? Like, with the intensity of play. But when I've watched the other teams that have come into town and dominated, or when they've gone, on the road and these other teams have dominated, like, those teams are having fun and they just have like a genuine, organic kind of, charisma to them. And we saw that in this team last year, but we really haven't seen that this year.
Yeah, just the last couple of nights. I mean, it's looked markedly better. Talking to Annie Heilbrunn here on Ben and Woods this morning. What is your sense? And you're around the team in the clubhouse a lot. What do you think the players think about their skipper, Bob Melvin?
I really think that the players respect Bob Melvin. I mean, I really think that the players like Bob Melvin. What I think happens is, when you start losing, or you start getting into these collective funks or slumps, sometimes it can be easier than others times to sort of, hear stuff and question stuff. And, whether it's chatter on the outside or chatter on the inside or people pointing fingers or this and that. But everything that I've seen, and again, I kind of point to last year, like, the hard part that I have with people blaming Bob Melvin and stuff is, he's a fantastic manager. And, I think San Diego's very lucky to have Bob Melvin personally. But second of all, like, these guys, last year, like, we can't say enough about Bob Melvin. And just because they're losing this year, I don't think that you go and say, well, it's Bob Melvin. Like, this is a team that, was rallying around him last year. And I still think that they are. It's just that you're not seeing that sort of thing because they haven't been winning, and when you lose, just everything rolls downhill. And when you win, it hides all the cracks and deficiencies and things like that. But I personally think that Bob Melvin is not the issue here. And I think that there is a lot of respect for him.
Annie Heilbrunn is with us from the UT on Ben and Woods here this morning. And you talked about the team having fun. clearly, Fernando Tatis Jr. stealing home, and we saw his emotional reaction. This comeback season for Fernando, he's been hailed a lot for how he's handled it, how he's interacted with fans. He's come back and, showed some maturity and responsibility. But at the same time, I don't know that we've seen him completely let loose all season either and be the same player until yesterday. You've seen him as much as anyone. What have you kind of observed from Fernando Tatis Jr. and how he's kind of handled this whole year after being gone for so long?
Yeah, he's really stuck to the intention that he had at the beginning of the season, which is that he's going to be himself, but he is, going to kind of love the ups and the downs. Like the whole thing, and he said it a lot at the beginning of the season, is the good and the bad. I'm going to embrace the good and the bad. And honestly, a lot of times, if that's easy to say and it's harder to do, but he has, for the most part, embraced that. Like he's embraced the booze, he's embraced the chatter around him. He obviously has gone through a slump, right, over the last month or so. That's been really hard on him, I think. And I think it's just hard on any player. And I do think that there was probably, and I don't know this, I haven't talked to him about this, but I think that when he wasn't selected for the All-Star game, I think that maybe that there was a little bit of a surprise there, a little bit of, and that's just kind of me, looking at it from the outside, because,
Sure.
His teammates and a lot of people around baseball thought he should have been in that as well, At the same time, like, he's handled the ups and downs really, really well. Bob Melvin and him have, formed a fun little relationship that I think has been cool to watch. And then, for Fernando, I really think that, like, he's, he gets inside himself a little bit, but he always comes back to, I love the game. The game is simple, and he just kind of waits for his moment, and he started to really get into, taking the pitch that he's getting, just going with the pitch that he's getting, which he's had success with now recently. But then last night, you have a game like last night, and he looks like the Fernando of old. He just looks like the guy that we know. And he's not going to do that every night, but it's like, it was fun to see that in him, right? Like, to see, like, hey, we know that guy. That's the guy that does that stuff, and I think that he needed that too. I think he needed to feel that.
The smile came out. I mean, I
Yeah.
tweeted a picture of it. It was one like we hadn't seen, filled up the stadium. It was incredible. Great to see him playing like that. And of course, always great to talk to our beloved Annie Heilbrunn. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Don't
Our
be
pleasure.
strangers.
We'll see you at the ballpark.
Talk to you soon.
Be out there tomorrow night.
I think I'm going to be out there as well this weekend.